Hello, my name is Kay McDonald, and welcome to the Charity Charms podcast, The Power of Charms. Today, I have a very, very special guest, Debbie Howard. Her topic is creating a global caregiving culture, and she's become one of the foremost authorities in caregiving in our nation and in Japan. And I have a few bragging rights as well. Debbie Howard is also my cousin. So not only do I think she's amazing, but she's also a very precious family member. And I listen to Debbie with all my heart because she's just become a major advisor for people on the subject of caregiving. She took care of her mother, who was my aunt. And I'm excited today to talk to Debbie, listen to her journey, how she got to be where she is. She's a renowned speaker. She's written several books, and she's a definite authority on a subject that is very, very touchy. Caregiving. I also want to mention too that we are having this podcast in November, and November is National Caregivers Month. Is that correct, Deb?
That's correct. Yes. Thank you, Kay.
Right. So I wanted to just give you a little background on Deb. She's a former caregiver and global market analyst who helps companies understand and support their employees' individual caregiving journeys. Her mission is to change the way the world looks at caregiving so the impacts are not so devastating to individuals, companies, and societies overall. I would love for you to hold up your book, Deb, for people to see the caregiving journey. Debbie wrote this book. There's actually some quotes from me and my mother in there about our caregiving journey with my father and Debbie's uncle. It's a precious book, and all of us are going to be caregivers at some point in our life. So I'm so happy that Debbie has decided to get into this arena and help people that are going to have to go through the journey that she has gone through. So Deb, let's start out with a little bit about background on you and your life. You actually have dual careers, which is the model of a truly modern woman. How do you have a career in Japan and in the United States, and one is market research and the other is caregiving specialist, and you marry them together in many ways as well? Tell us how you do all that.
Thank you so much, Kay. I thank you, and thank you for your kind words. And I love you as my cousin and as a person and as an entrepreneur. So I'm so thrilled to be here. I don't know how I do it, to tell you the truth. But I do think I kind of evolved into it. Like so many things, once you're there, it kind of maybe it feels like it was easy. But if I look back, it had a way of happening. And I was there in Japan working for 20 something years. I came home to be a caregiver for my mom, as you mentioned, and literally ran my business in Tokyo from Greenville, South Carolina, off the dining table. And that experience really affected me. And I think it gave me a new view on the aging problem in our world, and also the impact on the caregivers like us, family unpaid caregivers who help our aging parents and loved ones. And I believe that what happened for me is that I just couldn't stand to let that traumatic experience go to waste. And I thought that if I could tell my story, that maybe I could help a few other caregivers to manage their own situations better and with more grace and ease. And so I kind of started with that idea in the back of my head. And I've always been a writer. I'm a lot better writer now, I must say, because I've been writing all the time. But I put those skills to work, my writing skills and also my market research skills. Mm-hmm. And that was an amazing thing. It's like a researcher's dream for me, because the caregiving area is so big. So I guess I kind of evolved into it.
Yes. And, just knowing you as my family member for years, there's adjectives that I would use to describe you. I would say very articulate, very talented, very worldly, very open-minded, but caregiver is not one of the adjectives that I would have thought that I was going to have to use for you. But you took that experience and turned it really, made it a big pivot in your life.
Yes, it did. And it wouldn't have been something that I think nobody would have said that about me probably because I'm a marketing research, marketing, advertising, sales, and it just doesn't quite fit. But there's, I think one of the big things I learned from my caregiving experience was compassion. And
Mhm,
it really added compassion to my life. And I think that was missing.
mhm.
And now that I've found it, it's really fun. And it's really fun to use my marketing skills to get a message out there in the world that is so, so important.
Well, one of the things that I love about what you're doing is not only in the book giving people tips and guidelines on how to prepare to be a caregiver, but you're really into self-care. You really stress that you can't take care of another unless you take care of yourself. And you've actually taken it beyond just, hey, take care of yourself, to you've started like a healthcare challenge too for people that follow you, friends, family, and
Yes.
workers. Tell us a little bit about that and how that's
Okay.
going.
Okay. Well, I've always been really interested in self-care, but I can't say that I practiced it very well until I became a caregiver. So, for example, I was always eating pretty healthy and doing yoga. But when I became a caregiver, I was acutely aware that if I went down, if I got sick, or if my condition were weakened, I would not be able to help my mother.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like the old saying, when you're in an airplane and they say, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help anyone else. And honestly, when I was a caregiver, I was doing more exercise, eating, I would say maybe eating about the same, but definitely I was doing more exercise, and I was just very, very militant about making sure I got some time to myself, and I did take care of myself. It was still difficult and
Right.
extremely challenging, but I started this. I became very interested in the self-care thing,
Mhm.
and I started this 31-day self-care challenge, easy self-care challenge, because I think if we start looking at our self-care and we try to add little things one by one, we can actually come up with a pretty good program for ourselves, and one that works for us. Like whatever works for you is not going to work for me, maybe, or
Right.
vice versa. So we each have to be really assertive about finding the way forward that works for us. And we're basically looking about getting good sleep, eating well, getting enough time for yourself, um, and and drinking water, enough water. They're really basic things, but it's amazing when you get caught up in a career how those things start to slip.
Hmm. That is so true. And so I try to do my self-care challenges along with you because I think it's so important. One of the things that I am finding as I see you develop along this path is, to me, that you're kind of a maverick in the industry. The whole caregiving industry world that we're in, it's not openly talked about a lot, and said, it's kind of like I think you've uncovered in talking to people that there's a little bit of a stigma sometimes in the workplace for people that are caregiving, so they don't necessarily want to tell their employers, I need time off because I have to caregive. And you're becoming an advocate for that, which I love and I think is so important. Can you expound on that and tell us a little bit more about what's happening in the world and how you think you're making a difference in that arena?
Okay. Well, I think that just by standing up and telling your story, it gives other people permission to also do things and feel things and say things. And so when I wrote my book, I didn't tell all the stories, by the way, but
Thank goodness.
I told a lot of stories, and some of them were quite painful. I was not able to be by my mother's bedside at her death, for example, because I went on a business trip.
Mm.
And some people might think that's selfish. I still in my heart feel so sorry about that. But the fact is that 3 weeks before my mother died, and we didn't know when she was going to die, I had a chance to go on an international business trip from South Carolina back to Japan and Australia as part of a road show with the Australian Trade Embassy. And so for me, who had been literally taking care of my mom for a year or so with my business in a very weakened position, it was a very important opportunity for me to be able to get back out there and start talking again and start relaunching my life, knowing that my mother was going to die. So I still feel very conflicted about that, Kay, but I know that my mother thought that was the right thing for me to do. And I think when we tell our stories like this as caregivers, we give people permission to feel what we feel. It's a very tough emotional terrain.
Well, and it's interesting too how this momentous occasion, taking care of your mother, has actually pivoted you into a new direction in your life. And also you being a researcher, asking questions, asking people the important questions, and then sharing them with others, that need to know, what do we do? What are our next steps? I know that you shared with us that you have a book, Deb. I also just watched a very interesting interview of you on
thank you.
Yeah, it's on YouTube now, and we'll put the link at the end. And that was through United Way, am I correct?
That's right.
Okay. You've also done a TED Talk, and then you've just come out with a new book with a partner. And what's the name of the new book?
The new book is called Employer's Guide to Workplace Caregiving in the Workplace. And it is about 25 pages. It's an ebook. It's very easy to digest. It summarizes the research that's been done over the last 20 years and also helps companies to understand a way forward, some easy wins and ways forward to help their caregiving employees.
So Deb, people that are watching this, a lot of people are small business owners and they don't have departments that can handle and help people when they are facing these kinds of challenges. I think you're feeling that there's maybe a need out there in the world for a special kind of service for small to medium businesses so they can help address this, because caregiving is as important as childcare. Am I reading that correctly?
Absolutely. What we are advocating these days is what we're calling a lifespan culture viewpoint from within companies. So in companies, we celebrate births. We give help to employees in terms of retirement planning, in terms of managing alcoholism and drug abuse. Lots of different services are given through employee assistance programs. So why not help a special segment of your workforce that represents 20% of your workforce? And that's before COVID, because now if we start including people caregiving for children at home and that sort of thing, we're up to 30-40% of a workforce.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I learned a lot about caregiving when I attended a caregiving conference that you did last year. You were a keynote speaker at the Caregivers Conference, which, I have to give us a little plug. We did a bracelet together, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did, with the branding card. It was fabulous. Yeah.
That was fun. Of course, being my cousin helps a little bit, right?
That's right. That's right.
So now that we have COVID and we can't do these wonderful conferences and conventions and all that, are you finding that you are doing a lot more of your interface through Zoom meetings with groups? Offices?
Yep, I'm doing most. Whoops, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mostly what I'm doing are webinars. So the United Way webinar, I did a webinar for the Global Chamber, which reached out to companies all over the world. I am in the analog world. I have set up a display at our public library here in Wimberley, Texas, of my 20 or so private collection of caregiving books. And I'll be doing a local author book signing there on November 19th. So I'm reaching out that way. Also, of course, with our podcast, that's another way that we're reaching out that is really not affected by COVID. It perhaps exists because of COVID in a way. So we're just having to really reach out digitally as much as we can. And then I'm doing the little analog events here in town as best I can.
Can you give me some really quick statistics on our aging population? Because I don't think people have any idea how big it is and how many of us out there are going to be needing help. And you and thank goodness a big sector of our society are really starting to say, whoa, there is this huge need developing. Tell us some statistics so that people can really know what we're in for in the future.
Okay, well, you know I love my research, Kay.
Yes.
And about half of everyone watching this this video right now will be caregivers within the next 5 or 10 years. About half of everyone watching, and that would be a lucky number. That's because we have a rapidly aging population here in the US. Japan is faster, with 30% of the total population in Japan aged over 65 by the year 2025. Here in the States, it's 20%. That's still huge. And the US is one of the, I mean, all developed countries are experiencing this, but we're next in line after Japan pretty much. And there are, in line with the aging of the population, if you can imagine this, 10,000 people a day are turning 65 here in the States. 10,000 baby boomers. So this problem is it's just spiraling out of control. Then we have the healthcare issues and the comorbidities. We have 53 million caregivers in the US right now. And those are people like you and me who are caring for adults over 50.
They're unpaid positions. They're just
unpaid
roles and responsibilities that we all end up with, right?
Yeah, no nursing care. This is not including any of the nursing professionals or healthcare professionals. This is us. And we, as unpaid non-professional caregivers, provide, if we valued our work, which hardly anybody does, if we valued our work at minimum wage, it would be equal to the annual Medicare budget.
Oh,
it's like astounding. Like, we cannot survive in our country without our help. And it's really taking a toll on the people who are caregivers. So about 40% have clinical depression, as you can imagine. Many suffer physical and mental, or physical and emotional health deterioration. Many have financial strain as a result of the caregiving. So it is really a very real problem, and it's been called the next global healthcare crisis. They were calling it that before COVID. So, I'm sorry to laugh, but of course now it's behind COVID. But
right.
It's a big problem. It's a big problem and challenge for our world.
Well, thank you for taking such an interest in this area, albeit because you went down the personal journey. But I hope that folks listening to this will maybe just spark a little bit of awareness or concern about, gosh, have I spoken to my parents? Have I spoken to my loved ones? Am I addressing this? Do I know what I'm in for? If not, the very first step, Debbie, what do you recommend people do as the very first step to get prepared?
So I think the most important things, there's two things that we can all do. We can think about it and accept it and acknowledge that this is going to happen. And we can make a plan. We may not finish the plan right away, but we can start making a plan, and we can have that first discussion with our parents and our loved ones. Maybe it's a parent who has to force the conversation with the children, with the adult children. Either way, whether you're going to be a care receiver or a caregiver, make that conversation happen and start making your plan. And I can share some links if you'd like. I have a resource guide that has a really interesting planning tool in it. But yeah, get started with that. And the second thing is self-care. If you're not taking care of yourself right now, you are going to go into the situation weak. And that is going to be devastating to everyone. So get some information and education and motivation about your own self-care now, and develop your own program that works for you so that you can go into the caregiving situation as strong as possible.
Absolutely. And thank goodness, Debbie, you've spent a lot of time putting together tools and resources for people to help get started. And we will have those on, we will have all the links and everything on the bottom of this podcast. Just quickly, Debbie's website is thecaregivingjourney.com. So you can go on to her website, you can sign up for her biweekly newsletter, you can listen to her podcasts, and you can even download her free ebook. So Deb, thanks so much for your time today. I wish we could go on and on and on, but I think that—
Well, we could, we could.
Yeah, we could, as we do. But I feel so blessed to have you in my life, and I'm so very proud of all that you've accomplished. And I'm very, very thankful for all the resources that you are providing for me and all the people that I know and love, because we are going to have some caregiving, all of us, in front of us, as well as far as—
Thank you so much, Kay. And I'm very proud of you as well. And I know that some of the organizations that you work with are actually like touching on that caregiver space, like the Alzheimer's Association and other organizations. So it's very important that we all just keep pushing forward.
Absolutely. Again, this is Debbie Howard. Thecaregivingjourney.com is her website, and she's my precious cousin. So thanks so much for your time today, Deb.